Will I just start talking, or I'll appear on the screen then, will I? Okay, guys, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
We're going to start the meeting, if that's okay. But first of all, just a quick intro. Obviously, you're fully aware we're having some technical difficulties here. And unfortunately, we're not in a position to contact those who are going to join the meeting on YouTube. But for some reason, YouTube has locked us out of the system. So we're unable to get the YouTube channel up and running. So the only people who are in attendance at this meeting at the moment are those delegates for the clubs that were registered. We will recording the meeting, and we will make the recording available to all the people who've been unable to get in because of the issues that we've had. So in as much as we can see, everyone who was logged in as a delegate prior to us having to shut the system down and reboot it is back in. So we're going to officially start the meeting now. What I would ask is that either as we go through the meeting or after the meeting, if people could let their club members who are hoping to join on YouTube, make them aware of what happened so that at least they're not waiting for something to happen. We're not in a position to contact them because we don't have their contact details. We only have the delegate contact details on the Zoom. So our apologies for that, but it's just, I suppose, technology. It works and sometimes it doesn't work. So let's start. First of all, for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Eric Brady. I'm the chair of Hockey Ireland. Good evening to everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us for our AGM. You're all very welcome. It's a week evening, so I know that people have probably given up other activities that they would have ordinarily done on this Thursday night, so thank you for that. What I'd like to start with, if I may, is to say that on behalf of myself as chair and the board, I'd like to pass on our commiserations to all members of the hockey community who passed away since our last AGM in November of last year. I'd particularly like to mention Vivian Clark, John McDonough, and Keys Coppolar, who were either members of the board or used to work with the board, and of course Keys is an honorary life member. And what I'd ask is that if we could have a few moments silence just in remembrance for those three individuals and for all of the other individuals across the hockey community on the island who may have passed away since we last met in November last year. So we'll go into silence now just for a short while. Okay, let's move on into the meeting proper. And we go start with the chairperson's address. I have a report in the annual report, which hopefully you've all had an opportunity at this stage to have a look at. So I tend to be relatively brief in my address this evening. There are very comprehensive reports from all of the various sections in the annual report, and there are a number of things that are obviously going to be coming up over the course of the meeting as well. So we're on Zoom again. 6 months ago we were on Zoom as well. I suppose the only positive thing that we can say this time around is that the horizon is looking an awful lot more positive on this occasion than it may have looked when we were online last November. It's been a short time frame since our last AGM because, as you will know, last year's AGM was delayed considerably because of the COVID pandemic. On the positive side, by having our AGM today, we are going back into the proper annual cycle of May for our AGMs, and we were going to have to do that at some point anyway. It's been a difficult year, or difficult 6 months. It's been a difficult 18 months for hockey. It is great that at the very least we can say that we are now back training and playing, with the possibility of having some type of competition in the summer, early summer, midsummer, which, to be honest, probably wasn't looking that likely earlier on in the year. I think things are certainly moving on well. Ulster has progressed well ahead of the Republic, but I think we're catching up in terms of vaccinations. And I had my own vaccination last weekend, which I think shows I'm in the older category, is how my teenagers described it. But I think everyone's going to get it pretty soon. So I think that the shaft of light that I mentioned back in November last year, I think has got bigger. It's a spotlight, I think, at least now, and we will hopefully get back to what we all want to do, is playing hockey, training for hockey, and getting involved in hockey activities of all sorts. On the international level, our ladies team, the squad for the forthcoming European Championships was announced today. We have a most unusual occurrence in some ways, in that the women's team are going to have 2 major championships within a couple of months of each other, because the Euros, as you well know, will move on into the Olympics, which, while still a little bit touchy, is certainly now looking like it is going to happen. And that's really good news for the ladies team and for hockey and for the hockey community in Ireland. The men who have been, I won't say resting, but I'll say that they have been working away in the background but dormant, but they're going to have their own competitions coming up in the autumn. And then there's going to be World Cup qualifiers, which was looking pretty bleak at one point in time, but the European Hockey Federation and all of the NAs got together and made some recommendations and some suggestions to the FIH, and thankfully they changed what looked like was going to be a rule where our men's team and men's teams from other nations were not going to be able to even get into a qualifying process. So while it's going to be a long path, at least it is now possible for our men's team to qualify for the World Cup. What I'd like to focus on a little bit, and this will be the main part of my presentation this evening, is to just talk a little bit about the strategy. We've been talking about a strategy in Hockey Ireland for quite some time, a number of years, maybe over 2 years, but we launched a strategy earlier this year. I'd like to just maybe talk a little bit about some of the things that have happened since the launch of the strategy. Certainly from my perspective and from the perspective of the board and the office, we have made significant progress in a number of areas in relation to the strategy. And some of them are things that were questions that came up at our last AGM and through other communications in the interim. So the first of our goals, securing the future, we have, since our last AGM, taken on a commercial director on an interim basis. That has been going very well since the 1st of January when John Foley joined us. And that has helped considerably in improving our situation with regards to our commercial activities. And since he has come on board, and with others in the organization and the broader hockey community working with them, we are carrying out a review it's pretty much complete. It has to go before the board yet, of our commercial situation and what options are available for us in the lead up to the Olympic Games and past. And we have a number of other commercial deals, new ones that are in progress, and all of them are looking very likely to get signed off over the coming weeks and months. Our sponsorship, we've had a significant increase in interest, even with the COVID situation. We're updating our financial policies, and we have our membership we've made progress in terms of the membership. I know that's going to be an issue for discussion and questions and answers later on in the meeting. In terms of growing hockey, our fundamentals level 1 and level 2 courses have been reviewed, and we will be hoping to be in a position quite soon to roll them out. We're also updating our coach education database, which is something that hadn't been done in as comprehensive a manner for quite a while. We've established a new leaders panel, and in an effort to support clubs, we had a number of courses and support conversations with clubs who looked to apply for the sports capital grants, and that has received very significantly positive feedback in relation to Kenny in particular, who did a lot of that heavy lifting on that. Our umpire development program, which was in germination and was almost ready to go, but since the launch of the strategy, we have got to a point where that is now launched as well, which is another very positive step in terms of growing the sport of hockey. In terms of our third pillar or goal in the strategy, winning on the world stage, well, I've already mentioned the ladies team. I won't go back to that, and our men's team as well. But out in the sports campus, there have been new cameras purchased and infrastructure so that the pitch in the sports campus in Abbottstown will be moving towards a position where it will be able to accommodate competitions at international level, where we will be able to have cameras for training for the national men's and women's teams and for the Jags. Our high performance coach development program has also started. So we're making some significant ground there as well, albeit that the focus for the next little while, as I said earlier, will be on the European Championships for the women and men and the Olympic Games in Tokyo. In terms of leading the sport, one of the things that we talked about before, and it's in the strategy, is the whole area of doing an audit on the governance structures and the operational structures within hockey. We have engaged an external organization to do that. We signed contracts earlier this week, and they will be starting their work, I would hope, early next week. And within, I would suspect, 6 to 8 weeks, we will have a comprehensive report in relation to how well we're doing in terms of our governance and also in terms of our structures, because what's alluded to in the strategy is that we need to get to a point where all of the various different stakeholders within hockey can clearly see where they fit within the broader structure, and that we can all start to point in the same direction and to get some sense of economies of scale where we all work together and support each other, rather than each individual province or each individual section reinventing the wheel when it's already been invented in one of the other areas. A big amount of work was done at the start of this year by our company secretary in relation to re-energizing and refocusing our board subcommittees. That has happened. We've had a new subcommittee put in place for the Masters hockey players, and we now have regular reporting structures from the committees back to the board in a coordinated fashion. And the remit of the committees, while looking after their respective areas, is also to ensure that the relevant areas of the organizational strategy are kept in mind, and that we continue to keep a focus on those things that we have prioritized and want to move forward on. Goal 5, positive engagement with our stakeholders. We now have a completely revamped website. There probably are still some tweaks we need to do around the edges, but we have a new website that I think is much better in terms of being able to promote the sport and to present what we're doing. It's certainly significantly easier to work your way through the website. I think it's much more logical and much more understandable. We also have an initiative set up by the president, Anne Rosa, and John Dennis, the vice president. We've had 2 meetings to date, informal meetings with clubs. There's another one planned for, I think it's next week. And the idea is that it'll be an ongoing initiative where clubs are brought together to talk to each other, get to know each other, and to also talk to the president, the vice president, and I as chair sit in on those meetings as well. And Linda Monaghan sits in on behalf of the office. And the idea is to really start to try and get the hockey community to engage with themselves as well as with competitions and with the organization as a whole. The structure of those meetings is that a number of clubs are taking from each province. So there's an even spread across the provinces. So we have engagement between clubs that, certainly from the meetings I've attended to date, where they wouldn't ordinarily be talking to or be or know some of the people that they meet on the meetings. And it's already shown some very positive engagements that are happening either at the meetings or after the meetings. In terms of the brand of Hockey Ireland, which obviously is very important in terms of how we deal with all of our sponsors, all of the hockey community, how we deal with Sport Ireland, Sport Northern Ireland. We have a new merchandising agreement in place, and we're starting to do a lot of work in the whole area of targeted marketing. Our social media engagement scores, as measured by the Business Support, recently show significant increases. Maybe not the breadth we'd like in the long term, but certainly in certain instances, we're getting significantly increased social media engagement. And these are some of the things that we need to do to promote the brand and to get us to a point where, as we say in the strategy, we become the number 4 sport in the country at the very least. It's going to be a challenge. There are lots of other sports looking to do the same thing, but I think we have probably a bit of an edge on them at this stage, and we just need to keep the focus on doing this and to make sure that we continue to roll out the strategy. If we roll out the strategy, it will take us to a point towards the end of the strategy where we will have a significant opportunity to be able to say without a shadow of a doubt that we are at least the number 4 sport in the country. And that would be a significant step for us. We may have believed we were, but we will have the data, and we will have the rest of the sporting community in the country agreeing with that. That's pretty much all I wanted to say. As I said, at the risk of repeating what other people have said in the annual report or what might be said later on in the meeting, I just wanted to highlight that we are making progress. The strategy is going to be very useful in terms of helping us to achieve our goals, both short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Notwithstanding that, however, I know that change is a difficult process. I'm a psychologist myself, and individual change is difficult, group change is more difficult, and large-scale organizational change is the most difficult. And we are going through a lot of change at the moment, some of which is required. In our governance and compliance area, we have to be compliant with the new code of governance by the end of this year, or we will lose funding. That's a ruling from Sport Ireland, and Sport Northern Ireland are supportive of that, and the goals that they want us to achieve in terms of governance are very similar. So that's an external driven one, but it's the right thing to do. Some of the other things that we're doing are important. If you know from the last AGM that we had some financial difficulties. We're working very well and on the right path to resolving that. And the ultimate goal is to change the ratio of government funding versus self-funding completely around. Over the last number of years, we would have been much more dependent on government funding for much of our activities. And while we would have generated some funding ourselves, it was quite small with respect to the government funding. So we're looking to try and get to a point where we can reverse that ratio. But what we would like to do is to maintain government funding as it is and increase our own funding so that the government funding that could be between 60 and 70% at the moment, that becomes the 30 to 40%, and that the rest of the money is coming from other sources, be it sponsorships or other initiatives that we would bring. It is difficult. It is going to create situations where people are in a little bit of turmoil. Clubs are going to be in a little bit of turmoil trying to see how this will work for them. I would encourage all clubs to engage with the board, engage with Hockey Ireland. By all means, ask questions. We have questions today in relation to membership, and I'm very happy that we are getting the opportunity to hopefully explain what it is that's happening in relation to membership. Last year, our last AGM, it was a different issue, but it's the same thing. We want people to ask questions rather than sit and just wonder and not necessarily fully understand what's going on, because we want to be as open and transparent as we can be to show you that we are genuinely trying to bring hockey forward to a new place that will cement the sport for the years to come. So on that note, I'll stop and I will pass you back to Paula Kenneth, who will bring us through to the next item on the agenda. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric. So just to note for the minutes, apologies received in advance of the meeting from Crawford Tipping and Joan McCloy. Moving on then, the minutes from the previous AGM, 26th of November 2020. These were circulated in advance of the meeting, would have been sent at the end of April to all clubs. So what's required here is that we get the minutes approved and seconded. The way we'd like to do this is using the chat button. So we would like to ask for someone to propose and someone to second. You also have the option to abstain from this or equally to vote against the adoption. Thank you. So David Curran has proposed. If we could get a seconder. And then equally, if there are any abstentions or voting against, please put it in the chat. Stephen Wiltshire from Mullingar to second. Thank you very much. Then we'll move on from matters arising from the minutes. If there are any matters arising, any questions from the previous minutes, please do let us know via chat. I'll wait a couple of minutes to see if any questions are coming through. Okay, we'll take that silence as no matters arising. Thank you. If anything comes up, other questions, please, you can put them in the chat at any point. Moving on then to the annual report of the Board of Directors. I'm noting again that this was circulated in advance of the meeting. Any questions and comments, please do put them into the chat. Just to mention that following, we will have Keith giving a financial report. There have been some questions received in advance in relation to the financial statements. I will ask Keith those questions. Later on, we will have a report on membership. The questions around membership will be asked after that report, and then general questions we'll take at the end. So again, I'll just give a minute if there are any questions and comments around the annual report before I pass over to Keith. Okay, great. I will pass over to the Finance Officer, Keith Morrow, for the finance report and audited accounts.
Thank you very much, Paula, and good evening, everybody. What I've done this year is just there was a report done as part of the annual report of the directors, and I just have a couple of slides now to draw out a few of those points, and then there are some pre-submitted questions which Paula will go through with me, plus any others that get popped in the chat in the meantime. This time last year, I was reporting on a deficit for the year. Thankfully, for the year ended December 2020, we recorded a surplus of €25,037. That has enabled us to reduce our cumulative deficit to just over 132,000. The audit report reference, which was brought up by a number of people last year, that will continue to talk about the going concern until we've erased this deficit over the course of the next couple of years. Specifically, to draw your attention, The most important note in that is note 16, and it mentions a number of the ongoing initiatives that we're going through that will contribute to further income generation. We will any further COVID, we were successful on a number of COVID applications along with the clubs for funding that was available. If any other further rounds come up in the future, we will be looking to avail of those. We will continue what is now a 3-year process with rolling out the individual membership system. And then, as Eric alluded to in his report, we continue to focus on the commercial resources of the organization and looking to expand those. And one of our key objectives is working towards developing a more robust financial structure for the organization. Next slide, Jerome. Okay. Just one thing that comes out if anyone looks at the balance sheet is that there is 858,000 in deferred grants or income on the creditors for the balance sheet. They include high performance spending or high performance of 310,000. So in essence, what that means is of the high performance grants that we were given by Sport Ireland in respect of 2020, with in mind, the Olympics were originally scheduled for last year. 310,000 of that was not spent, and that's been deferred for utilization in the current year, 2021. There was also within the 858 is an amount of 383,000, and that refers to grants that were received by Hockey Ireland that had not been paid out at year end. That was because they were literally received the week before Christmas. Subsequent to that date, all those amounts have been paid to clubs. And then we had another couple of items from Sport Ireland. Our DAF is our dormant accounts funding, and Women in Sport funding. We had 129,000 of the grant we received in respect of 2020. We did not, obviously with COVID, we weren't able to engage in any hockey activities that enabled us to utilize those grants. So that, again, they've been deferred into 2021 with the hope of having the time to put on those programs and expend those funds. And similarly, last year, it came up around our auditor and their tenure. And I did indicate at the time we'd be going through a tender process, but I also did say it wouldn't be done in time for this year because it was too close to year end. But I'm pleased to be able to confirm that that process will commence in the next month. So they were just my pre-prepared comments on the financial report and audited accounts. I'm happy, Paula, if you'd like to just to pre-submitted questions.
Yep. And just to mention, if anyone has any additional questions around the financial statements, please put them in the chat. I have a few here that we've received in advance. So question from Dublin North, Keith. The annual accounts indicate that affiliation fees have reduced by 57% on the 2019 figures. Can you please provide details for this reduction?
Yes, and that is to do with how we recognise our affiliation fees from our clubs. They're recognised when received. So in fact, because of COVID and everything that was going on, we'd only received the portion that was recorded in the accounts by the end of the year, and that a large balance of the remainder has already been received in 2021 and will be recorded as such in 2021.
Second question, note 5 states that 383,000 has been paid out from government grants of €530,000. What are the reasons for the remainder, 147,000 being withheld?
Yeah, and I think this question is slightly about face. So that 383 I referred to in my previous comment. So we received 530 in government grants, the 2 COVID schemes, one after the other. By the end of the elements that relate to the clubs, 147, which was the majority of the amount that was received in the first tranche, had been paid out. But the 383,000 that was deferred was actually given out subsequent to year end once all the paperwork had been completed.
The sports NI grant is reduced by 48%, or is there an explanation for this reduction, and what is the expectation for this grant in future years?
Yeah, this grant is slightly different in that the Sport Ireland grants, you receive the full amount and we recognise it across the year. In the case of the Sport Northern Ireland grant, this money is expended or granted to us under the Sporting Winners program, which is funded by the British National Lottery. But the difference here is it was for the Olympic cycle. It was extended for a 5th year. But in 2020, which was the original 4th year, it actually, we claimed that on a basis of expenditure. So we get it retrospectively. We put in 100,000 in expenditure that qualifies, we get 100,000 back at that point. Because the activity of the high performance teams was significantly reduced, we didn't have the ability to claim any more than we did.
And then just one final question around the financial statements. Dublin North Hockey Club asked at the last AGM of the cost of hiring the NSC was reported in the accounts. We understood that the accounts for 2020 would allow for the identification of these costs.
Yes, and I looked into that subsequent to that meeting. If we were to break out, at the moment, along with all the high performance costs, they're recorded together. If we were to start breaking out the costs of the campus, we'd have to break out other costs, and that wasn't feasible to do. But I can confirm in 2020, we expended the cost to us for the full year for the sports campus was 78,000.
Okay. There's no questions keep coming in on the chat as we've been going through the questions submitted in advance. So we can, I think, move on to approving and seconding. Oh.
Okay. So here we come. We're required under the Companies Act that the accounts which have already been approved and signed by the board are adopted by the members in this meeting. So I would invite someone to propose the adoption of the financial report for 2020, and then also someone to second, please.
Okay, so if you can put your name and your club in, if you're happy to, one person to adopt and then one person to second. Kevin Keane to propose and David Curran to second. Thank you. Thank you, Keith.
To the extent there are any abstentions or anyone to vote against the adoption, would they record them, please? I believe in the absence of any abstentions or votes against the adoption, I believe that motion should be carried.
Thank you, Keith. I'll pass over to Pamela for a roll call, please.
Thanks, Paula. I just want to note we have approximately 61 members and the quorum is 25, so we have a quorum to continue for any votes. Next up then we have the motions. Jerome, if you could go on to the next slide, please. There are no motions to propose for the meeting today. However, I'm going to pass you over to Aisling Clough, the chair of our governance committee, to give you an update on the work that they've been doing up to now.
Hi everyone. So just to update you that the governance committee was reconvened earlier this year.
Aisling, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know, I presume you caught that, but I'll just go back again. So the governance group was reconvened earlier this year. And if you go to the next slide there, thanks. So the committee consists of 3 people from the board. That is myself, Billy Pollock, and John Dennis from Munster. We subsequently, following our first meeting, set up a governance subcommittee, and that was convened on the 8th of February with representatives from Ulster, Munster and Leinster. So from Ulster we had Jill Poots, from Munster we had Catherine Giblin, and from Leinster Emily Jones. And we're very grateful for them to come on to the subcommittee with their expert advice. So since January there has been, sorry, if you just go back, Jerome, thanks. Since January, there have been 3 meetings of the Governance Committee and 2 with the Governance Subcommittee. And basically the group was established to look at the following. So we were to look at the Hockey Ireland Constitution, the Hockey Ireland bylaws, and the current appeals process. So meetings and reviews have been ongoing with both the Governance Committee and the Subcommittee. The consensus that we've reached following our meetings is that our reviews are not sufficiently progressed, so therefore they wouldn't have been, we wouldn't have been in a position to present anything at this AGM. So what the governance group is suggesting and proposing is an AGM to take place for the sole purpose of considering the following, which is proposed amendments to the bylaws and proposed amendments to the Constitution. And the date that we are looking at for that would be a Zoom meeting, because we don't know whether we're going to be back face to face at that point or not. But that proposed date would be Sunday, the 22nd of August. So that's basically it from my side. Short and sweet. If there are any questions, you can pop them into the chat, and myself or Billy or John are happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Aisling. We'll move on then to election of directors to the board, and I'll pass back to Pamela to manage this, please.
Okay, thanks, Paula. So we have 3 directors that are standing for re-election at the meeting today. We have Eric Brady, Keith Morrow, and Sharon Hutchinson. So I'm going to run, this is going to be done by poll, and I am going to just run a test poll if we can, please. So I'm launching a poll now. If anyone that is in as a registered delegate, if you could please answer the question on the screen in front of you, just so we can test the poll to make sure it's working. The sky is not blue today, unfortunately, so there is no right or wrong answer to this. So we nearly have everybody that has voted. We've 80% voted. If everybody could vote for me, please. Okay, so the poll is working. So I'm going to end this poll and I'm going to begin the next one. So just to show you what will happen is I will share the results. So you should see the results coming up on your screen now. Okay. So I'm going to go to the next poll. The next question is going to be, do you agree to elect all the directors in a single collective vote? So I'm going to launch the polling now. So this is voting to elect all the directors in one go instead of singly. Okay, so we have a good majority there. We have a 96% agreeing, 94% agreeing. So we're going to go with the single vote. I'm just going to share the results there. So we have 90%, 95% looking to do it all in one vote. Okay, so we are going to, I'm going to go to the next vote. So the next one is the election of directors. So you as a membership agree to elect Eric Brady, Keith Morrow, and Sharon Hutchinson as directors of the company. If you could all vote, please. Okay, I'll give you 10 more seconds. We are currently at 100%, so that's a good sign. Okay. Okay, so I will end the polling now and share the results. So you as a membership have agreed to elect Eric, Keith, and Sharon as directors of the company. Okay. So that's the polling done for the election of directors, and we can move on to the next topic.
Thank you, Pamela. So just to move on to the next slide, we're just
Over to you, Paula.
thank you. Just noting the change
Paula,
in
you're just
direct.
on mute there, I think.
Oh, can anyone else hear me? Yes.
There's no
Jerome's nodding.
sound coming from you, Paula.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, we
I
can
think
hear
it's
you.
I think it's your sound, Pamela. Okay, thank you. This is all, it's like you're slightly talking into an abyss, so thank you, everybody. Just to note the change in directors since this AGM, Steve Hiles resigned on the 12th of May, and I am resigning after this evening's AGM. We're just noting those for the minutes. The next, we're going to record, can we pass that one? There we go. Jerome, I'm going to pass over to you for this one, please.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. Yeah, normally this is quite a straightforward one, but because there are some changes in the way we're proposing the going forward with the affiliation fees, I have to go through a few slides. There's quite a bit of history here, and the subject has been debated for quite a long time. And it was in 2017 that the board came to you with a proposal to change the way subscription fees would be charged, the subscriptions fees to Hockey Island. The way this is done for anybody who doesn't know that by a fee per team, adult team in competition for each club. That's a very unusual way of charging a membership fee. I actually don't know of any other sport that is using such a system. In 2017, the membership expressed to the board that it was maybe too early and too fast, and the board rescinded the proposal at the AGM. We then looked at it a little bit more, and in 2018, the board came back with a couple of changes to the constitution and bylaws to make it actually, to explain actually more on how that change would work within the structure of our constitution and bylaws. And that was accepted in preparation of making the change. In 2019, it was reported that the database that would underpin this was all set up and was functioning and in progress. And of course, then we came into 2020 with the COVID situation. But as we in the last AGM in November last year reported, this was still on the cards, and we were still looking at this because, as then mentioned, this was very important going forward, and actually a key item of the strategy as was being developed. We also had the benefit of a working group with that included the branches, board members, clubs, and chaired by board member Sharon Hutchinson. What we show you today is a phased transition to a new system. The board believes that gives the least disruption, and also we are aware that the data still needs to be tested and refreshed to make sure that this whole system would work and would go forward in the right way. As Eric already said in his opening words, compared to all the other NGBs on the island of Ireland, Hockey Island stands out to rely too much on government finance, and Sport Ireland in particular have made the comment to us quite a few times that they believe that if they compare us to all the other NGBs, we are not asking our members enough share to contribute to the core services that we actually need to provide as a governing body. and we're ready to admit that therefore the services to the members and the branches and our infrastructure, our sports infrastructure that we provide is lagging behind to a lot of other national governing bodies. And that's a key point in the strategy, and it's a key point going forward. I mean, we need to improve our sport. Will only survive and grow if we have a better machine that can basically back activity up and can give the support infrastructure that is needed. The strategic plan also talks about investments that are needed. Again, if we want to grow the sport, we will need to grow the number of coaches, and the investment in coach education is needed. In development, we know and we recognize that we still do not have a parity of development officers and club support officers over the island. We still do not have enough support for that, and that needs to be addressed. But we do need to raise the funds to do that. We need to improve on the communications, and we also have noticed that we need to work on creating more hockey facilities, and we want to help the clubs with that. And also it's touched on commercial. The commercial activity needs also investment up front, and it needs underpinning. It needs we can attract sponsors. We believe we're a very good product, but sponsorship also means that we actually need to need to give value to those sponsors and commercial partners, and that needs, again, it needs help, and it needs basically it needs people in the office that can do all that, and can do this in a professional way. If we don't approach the sponsorship in a professional way, then our success would only be short-lived, because if you don't actually provide value back to the sponsors, they basically would move on, and then we'll be back to square one. So at the moment, we're really doing really well in this area. We've attracted a good sponsorship, some major brands, but it is now up to us to make that sponsorship work, and that we deliver on those sponsorships. The other point, which has been mentioned as well, is that it's a bit of a strange situation that through this team fee, in principle, only the senior members contribute financially. And one of the things that we have found out through the establishment of the database, that actually the majority of the members of Hockey Ireland are juniors, and therefore actually are not contributing to the infrastructure, which would not be fair, because we believe everybody, all members should at some point contribute to keep the organization running. Another important point, that if we review what other NGBs are doing, and especially for team sports, it's fairly important that when you go on the pitch, that you actually would know that all players on the pitch, everybody you encounter, carry some level of insurance. And we have found through some studies that there's a difference in the level of insurance that the clubs are carrying. Some clubs are maybe not carrying this insurance. And we also have found, just by talking to all the other national governing bodies, that they say, well, if you provide this on a large scale for all your members, you can do this in a cost-effective way, and actually could make a saving for the clubs. The other point is, which is not to do with financial, but the database could be a very important tool to manage the sport. And more Sport Ireland and Sport Northern Ireland are asking us questions and asking us to report on how our sport is tracking, how are we doing in providing sport sport activity. It's very important that we know what our demographics are, that we start to track where at what age are people joining us, or where do we potentially lose players at what moment, and what are we doing about this. And all this is very important as well to apply for funding, because Sport Ireland and Sport Northern Ireland more and more are giving targeted funding. So they might be saying, well, we want to target let's say adult sports, or well, we know that they're targeting women in sport. They might be targeting helping us with making sure that people do not leave the sport, but all that needs to be underpinned with data. And the other thing is even on our officials and coaches, we need to have more data, and we need to have a direct relationship with everybody in the sport, so we can provide reports on how we're dealing with child protection and all the legal requirements. And in addition to that, that if we have this community of members, we also know that that would fit really well in the commercial strategy. And again, our interim commercial director has put some sort of feelers out, and there is good interest of a lot of companies that will provide discounts for our members. We already have a couple of companies that are coming on board, but we're also talking about sponsorship and benefits and discounts for the members in the area of insurance and in other areas and other industries. So again, it could be a very important tool. It would basically give direct benefits to the members, but of course it also will give commercial benefits to the organization so that more money can be generated. On the insurance, it's only when we actually strike the deal with the insurance companies that we can actually show what exactly the benefits would be. We had a lot of cooperation of clubs and branches that shown us examples of their insurance levels, and based on that, we're quite confident that we can give a fairly competitive level of benefits. And one of the questions you've asked is whether you could actually, that we can share you those benefits. We will do this because after today, we can move on with this, and we can make the final choice of the insurance company. We're trying to do competitive quotes at the moment, and it's only when we actually strike the deal, when the final deal with the insurance company, that we can give you the exact details. But this is the sort of level of benefits for the members that we're currently receiving the quotes on. There will be a differential amounts for under 18s and adults, but on the accident medical insurance per case, it would be the same amount. And and I'm not an insurance expert at all, but what I'm told, and if I compare it to some of the policies that we've seen from the clubs, there would be quite an attractive dental benefit as well. And also there will be, if there is another insurance that a member could claim on, this insurance would still help with offsetting any excess that you may have to pay on your other insurance. So that benefit would be there as well. But anyway, I know that the slide is kind of temporary for you, but we can make that available as soon as we have the final deal with the insurance company. So again, I've mentioned already, it's a phased system. So the 465 per team would stay for 1 year, and all the other fees would be then changed next year with the 475 going for each team, which could be a significant saving to the clubs, and it's up to the clubs whether they then pass that on to the members, because at the moment the members are maybe not even aware about this team fee, but that's for sure something we want to explain a little bit more going forward. On the insurance, again, if I compare this insurance, that those premiums that are currently being paid by the clubs, we have seen examples of insurance with less benefits, but costing a club between 3,000 and 4,000 euros. So immediately going to this system for bigger clubs, that could immediately be a benefit in the thousands. And I think I will leave it at that point. That this is where I could deal with any questions, as far as I haven't addressed it in the presentation.
If I might, just because the same question is coming up quite a lot on the chat, Jerome, or either yourself or Sharon. The gist of the question is, now is not the right time to impose an additional charge on top of the existing fee structure, said in different ways, but that's the gist of the question.
Yeah, it's a question and a comment. I mean, I'm reporting the decision by the board of how we're going, how the board believes we need to go forward. It's been discussed for many years, and every time it said it's not the right time. I know it might not be the right moment, but we do know that COVID has affected our community, and of course we're not going to deny that. But on the other hand, it also had a positive benefit that we have passed on, or there has been an investment from both governments in the north and in the south of over 700,000 euro into the club system. So we don't believe there are massive problems there. The paper does also state, and maybe that is a good point now under this question that you bring up, Paula, is to say that the board will still look at any individual cases where clubs will really believe that this is something that is causing problems for the club, and the statement has been made by the board that the board would then look at individual cases.
Okay, I might take a couple of the questions. There's a lot of questions in the chat, and just for everyone, I am going to go through them. But there were a number of questions asked in advance, so I might just take a couple of those.
Paula, sorry, Paula.
Oh, Trevor, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to just jump in and just cover off some of the points Jerome has made. This is something that is very critical to not only the development, but also the administration of our sport. There are additional costs on various items coming down in regard to governance. And Jerome has already indicated that Sport Ireland and the government are looking for sports to self-fund much better than they are at the moment. And particularly hockey has been singled out in this. And it is now time, I believe, for the hockey family to step up. At the moment, there is no contribution from 70% of our memberships, i.e. players under 18, into Hockey Ireland. Yet they expect the benefit to develop players and to produce structures that will allow our sports standard to improve and to be properly coached and to be properly administered and to be able to achieve what we're currently achieving, to get to Olympic Games, to get to your World Cups, to get to European Cups. Now, that 20 I know there have been complaints around 20 euro, and there's complaints around the 10 euro. This is as small as it can be at the moment. There has been no increase in any fees for the last 3 or 4 years in terms of affiliation. Yet, the expectation of the hockey family to produce quality structures and and people is not being possible on that level of income that is received from the hockey community. So the hockey community has now got to say, do we want a really well-done, a well-run sport with best-in-class governance, with best-in-class development, with best-in-class clubs that can develop? And we're doing that, and the monies will go towards, the clubs need not worry, the money will go back into the clubs, it will go back into the development of players. There are already initiatives out there. And I've got to say, I am pretty passionate about this. And those of you who know me, who are on it, know that generally what I am proposing here is in the best interests of hockey. And that is where I'm coming from. Yes, Jerome has mentioned, if clubs do have a problem, then let's deal with that. But we have underage kids who are paying for camps, they are paying for club fees, they're paying for school fees, they're paying for gear for all their kids. And what all we're asking for is for €20. Well, in the overall costs that it takes to get a young player onto a pitch, €20 is actually pretty small. It's right down in the lower percentage points. So I'm just saying, give this thought, give us the chance to roll this out. Let's see where this brings us, and let's try and serve and meet the expectations that you all have. I mean, it is impossible to meet all those expectations from where we are at the moment. So unless you come out and you really want the sport to develop, and we've got a big 6 months coming up where our sport is going to be right on the front pages, hopefully for all the right reasons, we should rightly be proud of what we've achieved on what's been a shoestring, and the support of the government, by the way, both in Northern Ireland and in the South, that the monies that we've received from them have been really well used. Do not be suspicious that money is going to be siphoned off into different areas. The monies raised under the different headings will be used to develop our sport. Coach education, critical. Umpire development, critical. We cannot grow our sport. To increase the standard of the players in our sport, it is really important that we get this out. We're paying for development officers. Where do the members think that the money to pay for these development officers comes from? It's not coming from the government. It's coming from the branches and from Hockey Ireland in to develop our sport. Everybody is benefiting. And we really must move forward here, and we must really get in behind how we would like our sport to look and how we want it to be in 5 years' time. That's me done.
Thank you, Trevor.
Paula, it's Stephen Cuddy here from Cookstown Hockey Club. Can I reply to that, please?
Sure.
Trevor, thanks very much for those comments. As far as I look at this, and I think it would be the mood of certainly a lot of clubs on this call. The way we look at this is that we are paying for the deficit that was incurred in 2019, the 280 odd thousand, and that's a primary reason for this. The last time Hockey Ireland incurred a large deficit, the famous £247,000 deficit, whenever someone was asleep at the wheel. What happened after that was then that all of the Irish underage teams had to be 100% funded, and that has continued to this day. So you ask about give us a chance and give us a chance and give us your money and we'll put in all these structures. Unfortunately, Trevor, the history would tell us that giving the money to Hockey Ireland perhaps isn't the best idea in the world. Regarding what will juniors get for this €20 and the €10, I know within Ulster, we won't see a Hockey Ireland development officer ever. All of the development that goes on in Ulster goes on via the Ulster branch and via the development officers that Ulster Hockey have. And I know similar things happens within the other branches. The heavy lifting is being done by the branch. So I think it's a little bit rich that Hockey Ireland then are asking for what is effectively a levy to try and where we haven't had any hockey effectively on the island of Ireland. And whenever you look at it for the 21-22 season, the fee of our hockey club would be doubling. If you look at other governing bodies, some governing bodies are giving rebates. A lot of other governing bodies are given heavily discounted rates for their next affiliation fees. So I really don't think the Board of Hockey Ireland have read the room here at all. This is totally the wrong time to be introducing anything like this. The big focus needs to be on getting people back playing hockey, not imposing effectively a levy on them to bail Hockey Ireland out.
Okay, can I just jump in there? I just want to, I take on board, and I mentioned in what I was saying that yes, the hockey community have been suspicious in the past of how things have been done. And you've related to the JAG group there and the junior development, where quite rightly, Hockey Ireland has not been in a position financially to be able to support that particular group, regardless of where they may be on the island. That is now changing. I can guarantee you, and I have argued that this membership structure, the monies that go into the different sector, a large portion of that goes back into those. There is administration involved around every different process and structure that you put in place. That need.
Try again, Trevor. I think you might be on mute.
Sorry, can you hear me? Sorry, my apologies. I just want to say we take on board your comments there, and I can understand how clubs are suspicious in regard to Hockey Ireland because what has been done in the past, and for whatever reason, some of them are good and bad. Some you can say we're asleep at the wheel. There are extenuating circumstances which we won't go into here, but if we want to look forward, look at the junior age groups, fully funded by parents at considerable costs. Now that has got to stop, right? But 70% of our membership are under 18 years of age, and they currently do not pay anything into Hockey Ireland. And I take on board as well that you see that this is an additional levy. It's very difficult. I mean, we've spoken long and hard in Hockey Ireland how we would present this so that it would be least painful. At the end of the day, no club is going to be disadvantaged from this scheme. It may take 2 years to work this out, but it will be worked out in an effort of fairness. And in regard to our deficit, we will work through that deficit in the normal course of business. We could very easily just say to everybody, we're really sorry, we've had this deficit, the volunteers in Hockey Ireland and everything, various things have happened, and we've got this deficit. Could you all subscribe €5? And that would wipe out the deficit tomorrow, okay? So we could do that because all the hockey clubs are in this for the variety of reasons and hopefully for benefits that they develop. So we're going to work that through. The monies will go in the right places, and I will not be a director of Hockey Ireland if the money does not go into the right places. And the board know that I've been quite vociferous on this over the last 3 or 4 months. So you either take it as an honest comment from me, or you say, we don't want any of this. Okay, but they're the options. And I, for one, would be extremely disappointed if the clubs do not back this opportunity to put our sport on a proper footing with proper resources, with the people in the office to do all these new ideas and events. We've just spoken about the Masters. Managing and administering the Masters costs money. Where does it come from? There's been no increase in fees. So it just falls on what's there now at the moment. We are not, and I appreciate that we've come through COVID, but I think clubs will come out stronger. Clubs were able to get benefits from Sport Northern Ireland from the British government through their fund, and in the South through the COVID fund. And these have been a great help to those clubs. And so, look, we're not going to penalise any club. We would like every club to embrace this, to get behind it, and to be part of what could be an exciting couple of years for our sport. Okay.
Thank you, Trevor. I think Stephen wants to come back in. Stephen, in the interest of time, we can give you 30 seconds. Just one, while you're coming back on, I see a comment earlier contesting what was being said about previous AGMs. It was around data collection. I have both the paper circulated in 2017 and the minutes where it says an annual individual affiliation fee payable by all hockey members, the introduction of insurance scheme for all hockey members. I'm sure we can circulate that afterwards, but just to answer that question, if we can allow Stephen to unmute, and I'll give you 30 seconds to respond in the interest of time, please.
Trevor, you mentioned there that around asking every club just every member to pay €5 to effectively get rid of the deficit. To be honest, I would have taken that there much easier than this proposed affiliation fees. At least it would have been upfront. There has been no consultation regarding this new affiliation fee structure. The first we heard about all of these things was whenever the papers come out for the AGM. There was a group set up to look at this, and the recommendations that came from that group was actually turned down by the Board of Hockey Ireland. So, and that group did have representation of different clubs on it. So whenever you're going about raising affiliation fees or even around that, proper consultation needs to happen with the clubs. You can't just land it on clubs a few months out from the start of a new season. You're asking us to embrace something, but the way this has gone about, it's been very, very underhand, and that's why there's no trust around it.
Well, I've got to say, look, there has been considerable interaction. Yes, there were some points raised by different people, and in a consultation process, there will always be different views that come in, etc. As directors, we are tasked with the responsibility of making sure that Hockey Ireland is run in a correct manner from a governance perspective, from a development perspective. And we have looked at this. This is the actual minimum at the moment that we need to move everything forward and to change the perspective. The affiliation fees have been there for 120 years, right? 120 years. And now we want to postpone it for another year, not to change the system. That does not work in the current climate. Every other NGB, or practically every other NGB, I should say, certainly in Ireland and certainly in the 32 county sports, has individual membership at €50 or more. And this is, and nobody complained. The sport has got on. Let's take the sport of rowing. Let's take the sport of athletics. And these sports are now developing. And we see that with the number of people, both from the north and the south, who will participate in Tokyo. Fantastic stuff. But this has got to happen, because without proper financing of our sport, we cannot deliver on the expectations of all our members who are in all your clubs and what you expect. And unfortunately, I can't make any apology for that. That's the reason. But I hear what you're saying. We did go through the process. We took on board. We did explain to the provinces. And look, we may have to work this through. And hopefully, in September, we will get out to face-to-face meetings with the clubs. And let's see how we move from phase 1 to phase 2 or phase 3, and to see how that's done in a painless manner and that no club feels they're disadvantaged.
Thank you, Trevor. Just to follow on in terms of, and there was a number of questions around the cost, the individual cost for other NGBs. I just have a list here in front of me ranging from €20 for the Croquet Association of Ireland to 125 from Cycling Ireland, and anything in between. Again, if I'm presume we can share that data with people afterwards if they're interested in seeing that. Some other questions both that have come in while we've been speaking, but equally before, a question around who sets the fees. Is it the board, and how do we know about them increasing the fees as the years go past? Jerome and perhaps Sharon, you might join us here.
Yeah, I can. I mean, our constitution and our bylaws state that the board sets the fees, and I mean so it's a job of the board that according to our rules and regulations, that's the job that they need to do. And we can't change that. We can't pass it on to somebody else. Sharon, you want to add or?
No, that's it. No, I know there was someone asking there about, why €10 for a senior player and 20 for a junior under 18. The reason is that for the senior player, there's also the team affiliation in year one. So that's why it's €10 for the senior player. And the junior player, we looked at the age groups now. Maybe it's different in different provinces, but generally your under 13 player is playing in a blitz type format. They're training once a week, whereas the player between 13 and 18 would generally have more training, more matches, so they're getting more for their sport, from their sport. So that's just explained the difference in the rates there.
There's a question in the chat around, do we have a database system ready to manage the new membership system from Antrim Hockey Club?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just trying to go through these one by one. You've answered the one about why under 18s, Sharon, €20, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Question from Hannah Wilson, many individual players, parents of junior players aren't actively engaged with the wider governing structure of the organisation. How can we engage with those members to explain the rationale behind the fee structure?
Well, it's a task that we take serious. I mean, we from now on we need to explain this to everybody. And I mean, I do want to go back to the whole situation is I mean, a lot of people talk about Hockey Island as being something that is kind of remote from them. But I mean, this room, or this electronic room, is Hockey Island. It's about your organization. It's about, I mean, do you want the organization that has the ambitions and has disclosed some of the plans and directions? Do you want that or not? I mean, there's a lot of comments in the chats who are saying, well, the clubs can do this and the branches can do that. That's maybe another way. But we would believe that in this platform where we have an AGM tonight about Hockey Island, you would think that the members would want the best for Hockey Island, and would Hockey Island want to be a very a good machine, something that everybody will be proud of and that can actually help the sport.
There's a number of people asking, can you explain this fee structure? Can you explain the amounts in that?
Okay, I'll come in there. Up to now, the senior players, how they affiliate is through a team membership. So that's €465 a year per team, per senior team. And to bring this system in, introducing that individual fee of €10 would help to cover costs for the new insurance scheme, and it would also it would get the individual player engaging with the system, engaging directly with Hockey Ireland, which they generally don't have to do at all. The club does all that. So this is a new way of communicating. We're communicating with the individual, not with the branch or the club. We're obviously still communicating with the clubs and branches, but now we're communicating with the individual through the system. Up to now, as Trevor said, the junior membership don't pay anything to Hockey Ireland. So hence the fee then for the under 13s and the under 18s. So that's €10 and €20 respectively. With regards to the coaches, you will see there's a fee there for €35, and that is for our EY coaches and Division 1. And we felt that this group, many of them are paid through their coaching, and it would help for them to, I suppose, if you look at other NGBs, their coaches get licensed, and this is our way of starting that pathway of coaches being licensed, making sure they have the right qualifications, So, and again, that money will be ring fenced and put into coach education. And the non-playing there it's not a mandatory fee. It's a fee for someone who would like to be part of Hockey Ireland, whether they're someone who they're affiliated with a club maybe, but they don't play. And so that non-playing member is just for anybody that would like to be part of Hockey Ireland. And then international player are those particularly who are playing internationally for Ireland, but obviously play outside Ireland. Currently, those players are not members of Hockey Ireland because they play outside. So that's just a brief explanation there.
Okay. If you have an adult player who's also a junior coach, do they have to pay both?
No, we would.
Just
You
pay
you
one.
would basically you pay your highest category, but you will only pay once.
Couple of questions around insurance. One, is the new insurance scheme mandatory?
Yes, for this to work, it would be. It's a collective insurance.
One other question around casual or sorry, is there a gap in insurance cover for new people at the beginning of the season? For example, if you have a player attending preseason and not yet registered, do we need to make sure they're registered quickly to ensure they're covered by the insurance?
Yeah.
So people would have to.
It would only work if you're in the database. Otherwise, the insurance would not cover.
Okay.
There is a date set for the 1st of November. So to be paid by the 1st of November. So I would imagine people are not penalised unless after that date they haven't registered.
Okay. What allowance is there in the new structure for casual players who may be played 3 to 4 times or help out if there's injuries on a team? The comment says they won't pay €35 and will be lost to hockey. What's the situation with casual players?
I don't know yet. I mean, again, in the working group, this has been brought up. We do need to look at that as well. Whether they are exempt totally, but then do not fall under the insurance, or there is a lower fee and still benefit from the insurance.
Sorry, can I just jump in on that one again, Paula? The purpose of this scheme is to get as many people playing hockey as possible and to encourage people to play hockey. We've spoken about the possibility of people who play 3 or 4. We will introduce something special for them and that they can continue to just fill in clubs so the clubs don't lose those players to enable them to fulfill fixtures. So there's still some work to be done and the discussion with clubs to see how this will best work, and we get the feedback from the clubs. This is a starting point for us to be able to move everything forward as one group and everybody understanding and benefiting from what we're putting in place. Okay.
Thanks, Trevor. Just a couple more comments on the insurance. What, if organizations have a combined insurance that include as well as their public liability, will they be doubly insured? And what if the cover of the club is better than what the Hockey Ireland one offers?
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that. I mean, I'm not the expert on insurance. The only thing the insurance company have told us that their experience is that the liability premiums for the clubs actually go down if an insurance like this is in place, because there's less risk of playing claims between players. That's the feedback. Yeah, we have looked at some clubs as an example of their cover, and we believe that we could match that in a reasonable way.
Sorry, can I just jump in here again? The insurance is obviously a key issue, and we've already done a little bit of research with some clubs where some of their policies are better in terms of the cover, and some are worse. So we've got to try and gather that information together so that a very fair policy goes in. But as Jerome has indicated, there will be hopefully significant savings for every club on their insurance bill when we can agree and get a policy in place that's suitable for everybody. So that's where we are at the moment. It's a difficult area, insurance, as you all know, and we just got to try and manage that through. And we will engage with the clubs in regard to what sort of policy will be available. Okay.
Okay. Just trying to make sure I'm going through the question around who's responsible for chasing the Hockey Ireland membership fees.
Well, I mean, that's partly Hockey Ireland, but we also believe that that's a joint effort. I mean, I think there's also questions on what are the sanctions, or what happens if you don't. And well, the answer to that is I mean, the rules apply. I mean, it's in our rules, it's in the club's rules that to be a member and to have the benefits of the membership, you need to be paid up, you need to be in good standing. So basically, you would lose the prerogatives you have as a member. But we believe it's a joint effort between the clubs, the branches, and Hockey Ireland to ensure that people are correct in the database, and we will ensure that the clubs have basically sight of the database as well. And as we have also indicated in the paper, we might move forward to a database that can provide even more functionality and could be linked to team sheets and results reporting, which we will make that even better. Again, I've studied quite a bit of what our colleagues in Germany, Belgium, Holland do. They all have integrated systems where basically you literally can't get on the pitch without actually having to pay your national governing body and the club. And it's here impossible to enter into any competition without those formalities.
There's a couple of questions that are referring to this proposal being reviewed or agreed or approved. Could I get either of you to comment on that?
Well, that's a legal situation. I can't further.
In terms of this is they're saying we shouldn't be the members shouldn't be asked to approve this now, and perhaps it needs more work. But are the members being asked to approve anything? Is what I'm
no, asking. As I understand that it's a decision of the board. Every year this comes as an information point.
Okay.
Sorry, Paula, could I jump in there for a moment?
Please.
First and foremost, I mean, I think it's great that everyone is getting an opportunity to air their views, but we're playing a bit of ping pong at the moment. There are people who obviously are very concerned about what's being proposed, and there are others who see the benefits of it. But I think to clarify a couple of points, first and foremost, the bylaws say that the board decide the fees for the year. So to answer that recent question, this is an information piece. It is not a discussion or a negotiation. The bylaws require us as the board of directors to decide on the fees for the coming year. There has been consultation with representatives from all of the provinces and all of the provincial branches going on for a considerable period of time now. And while there were a lot of differences of opinion, they came to a position, which is what has been presented to the membership here by way of information. Many of the issues that you are putting in the chat or are speaking to tonight were discussed and were thrashed out, and compromises were reached. At the end of the day, we have to have some form of fee structure for Hockey Ireland, because the sport in Ireland cannot exist without Hockey Ireland existing. We are the governing body. That's just the way it has been put in place at this point in time. And there can be no international hockey, there can be no Irish Hockey League if we don't have a Hockey Ireland. And Hockey Ireland are looking to progress the membership process. The idea is that this will end up being, to a great extent, cost neutral for clubs. We need to look at it beyond just the fee for members. Membership fees may change, but there will be savings in terms of savings for administration that clubs will no longer need to do, savings because they will get insurance. There is nothing to stop clubs having their own insurance, but there will be a requirement for the most basic insurance to be covered, because that's a governance issue that Hockey Ireland have to be able to stand over to Sport Ireland. While this is an interesting conversation, we do need to get to a point, not right now necessarily, but we could talk all night about this, and we need to get to a point where we start to try and find some middle ground, or where people can start to say that, okay, I don't like it, but I'm prepared to go with it for now. It doesn't come in until next November, this coming November. And I would ask the membership that, yes, let's go on and talk for a little bit more, but I think we need to start trying to find the middle ground so that we can actually move on from this, because there is no benefit in us staying here till 12 o'clock tonight, and the people who think it's a difficulty or a problem continuing to say that, and others to continue to say something other than that, because that won't bring us anywhere. And I think that if you look at it in its broadest sense, as Trevor has said in particular, this will bring hockey to the next level. It will allow us to be able to develop from where we are. We are running on smoke and gas at the moment. We don't have enough money to do anything. And we have to have the members behind us. We are the only sport that has such a large proportion of people who avail of whatever it is that Hockey Ireland as a national governing body give to them, and they don't have to pay any membership fee to the national governing body. That is not acceptable in my view. We have pitched the price at the lowest level possible so that we can just show that we have every individual who plays hockey is a member of the national governing body. People have said that they think that the prices will rise. We've said nothing about the prices rising. We are here to try and bring in a system in a way that is causing the least amount of strife and difficulty. And that's not to say it's not going to cause or is not causing strife and difficulty. Jerome has alluded to the fact that if there are clubs that are genuinely in trouble because of this, that Hockey Ireland will look to support them. And I'm sure the branches will look to support them as well. But we do need to start trying to see how we can make this work, rather than spending most of our time talking about how it can't work.
Billy, I see your hand is up.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Thanks. Just to pick up a couple of points which I've been answering chats on. There's a couple. I was David Kern was talking about the list of players, or list of categories: umpires, coaches, and the likes of the casual player. This was picked up at the workshop, and Colin Manson, like a lot of small clubs or clubs with a number of teams, the third force, we fully recognise that there's a casual player level who dip in and dip out, and that actually makes up a significant percentage of the population. And what we want to do is capture that number on the registration system, but they're clearly identified as a casual player. Now, Scotland, for instance, they categorise that player as a casual player, and something like a £10 fee. And if the player plays more than 3 matches, they then go into a different category. So there's so what we didn't want to do is go forward with that. We wanted to consult and do the best approach to that, incrementally bring it in the sense of we want those people to be members of Hockey Ireland and be part of the family, and that's the way it's been done. Coaches will be there, and the umpires, but we're consulting with the umpires association and committee to make sure that they're fully on board. They are fully on board. They want it brought out. They want to be part of that category list.
Thank you, Billy. Just one question on whether the video will be made available. Yes, we said at the start that because the YouTube, we had issues with the technical side, that the video will be made available. One question that has come in a number of times from Richard is what other options were just explored in terms of diversifying revenue? I don't know who wants to take that.
I'll jump in since there's no one really
Yeah.
excited about trying to answer that question. I alluded to that in my opening address, and I alluded to it in my report, in the annual report. We are making efforts, significant efforts, to try and increase our revenue and to increase the amount of cash that is available to the organization to help us to be able to provide what it is we need to provide to progress the sport. We have a commercial director in place. We have increased sponsorship. We have increased commercial revenue coming in, even in these difficult COVID times. We feel that there is huge potential there. Hockey has got, as I said, in relation to the social media, the research that was done by the Business of Sport, we are getting, as a sport, a huge amount of attention, and people are coming to talk to us as much as we are looking to talk to them. But it won't happen overnight. But the membership approach is not about the money. It's about ensuring that every single person who plays hockey on the island is registered with Hockey Ireland, pays a minimum fee, and has insurance, because there are things from a governance perspective that Hockey Ireland have to look after. Hockey Ireland will be the one that will be in trouble if something happens. In terms of the way that we are doing it, it was agreed at the AGM that the individual membership approach was agreed. The board don't invent these things. The membership of the organization agreed at a previous AGM that an individual membership approach with individual fees was the way they wanted to go ahead. And we have worked since, slowly, much more slowly than we might have liked to try and achieve that. We are now in a position where we believe we can achieve it, and we can bring additional benefits to the membership, to the provinces, to the clubs. It's not going to happen overnight, but it has to happen. It has to start someplace. And that's what we're looking to do here tonight, is to start the process. An individual membership approach that has the fees that are set, which are the lowest possible, but includes every person who plays. And the safety valve for it is that we will support any club that can show that it is genuinely negatively hit by that, until such times as we find a way to help them balance their books. I'm not sure what else we can offer at this stage.
Perhaps I think two things, if I might. One, can we please share the minutes of the 2017 AGM and the supporting documentation which shows that this was approved, this affiliation fee structure was approved in 2017. And then perhaps we need to arrange to have sessions outside of the AGM to go through all the members' concerns.
Sorry, Paula, is that what you're saying, or is that?
That's what I'm suggesting.
Oh,
sorry.
Sorry, I didn't know that was a questioner. We can certainly have conversations to help reassure people after the fact, but we have had facilitations and collaborations going on for quite some time now, where all of the stakeholders were given an opportunity, not necessarily individually, but through the channels, to put their views across. And that group came back to the board with these recommendations. So that's why it's here in front of you today, in the manner that it is. But there is no difficulty in having further conversations, but we need to leave this meeting knowing that this is the new system, and we're going to work to help everyone fit into it and come out of it at least on a neutral baseline, rather than being worse off. Okay. But we still have to agree. One of the items of the AGM is that the board put forward the membership fees to the membership for information, and that's what we've done. We've listened to what people have to say, but we will have to take these away as the new process, and then we can certainly have further facilitation or further communication with members, but it will be how to help make it work. It won't be to talk about something different, because the membership themselves made this decision, not the board. We're just happen to be the particular iteration of the board that are bringing it to the table now.
Okay, I think we potentially need to take the conversations then offline to a further meeting. I see I've done my best to cover all the questions that have come in. I see that there are a number of raised hands, but we've been speaking about this for an hour at this point. So the membership agreed this at the 27 AGM. We understand there are questions and comments that members would like to make. So Pamela, if we can note to follow those up after this meeting, and that we draw this part of the discussion to a close.
Yep, I've noted those.
If we can move on then to the appointment of auditors. Keith, can I bring you in for that, please?
Sure. A formality of the AGM is to appoint the auditors of the coming year. They are OSK Audit Limited. Now, we are required to appoint them now, notwithstanding our intention to go to audit tender. They will be invited to tender along with other audit firms, and if they are unsuccessful in that tender, they will actually resign, and that's a common courtesy between audit firms at that point. So just to appoint the auditors, is the next slide? Is there one? Or yeah, so for that, I would be happy if somebody would approve the reappointment of the current auditors.
Approved, Stephen Wiltshire, and seconded, Maureen Smith. Thank you both.
And if there's anyone abstentions or any wish to vote against the appointment of the auditors, would they put it in the email, in the chat, please? And if not, after a reasonable length of time, we will continue. Okay, I believe we should carry that motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paula?
The anti-doping report, this is we are required to just note this in our minutes. It's included in the annual report, so we're just noting its inclusion. And Rosa, if I might pass over to you then on honorary life members.
Thank you, Paula. I have great pleasure in announcing a new honorary life member, and I would like to congratulate Martin Kenneth on this honour. Martin started playing his hockey when he was in his 20s for Belvedere Hockey Club in Cork. He captained the first 11 and also took on the roles of treasurer and president of the club. Injury forced him to retire from playing, and it was then that he took up umpiring. In 1991, he moved to Dublin, where he umpired for 30 years, retiring in 2009. One of the highlights of his career was the Irish Senior Cup final in 1995 in Cork. This was the first and only time it was played outside Dublin. Martin has umpired interprovincial matches at all levels. He is an honorary life member of the Munster Hockey Umpires Association. He was a technical official and appointments coordinator for a number of years. He travelled to Europe, representing Ireland at both outdoor and indoor tournaments, first as a judge, then as a technical officer, and finally as a tournament director. He officiated at over 30 tournaments in Europe, including the Euro Hockey Nations Championships, the EHL, AKO 16 and finals, the FIH Olympic qualifiers, and World League. Martin was Vice President of Hockey Ireland in 2017 to 2018 and President of Hockey Ireland in 2019-2020. In fact, he served for 2.5 years. But I'd like to finish with a letter that Martin received, and he sent to me. He was very honoured to receive it from the President of the European Hockey Federation. I write on behalf of myself, European Hockey Federation, and the whole European hockey family to sincerely thank you for all your work in our sport for over the past years and to wish you all the best. Hockey Ireland was lucky to have your dedication and passion at the top. From the European perspective, the EHF are certainly going to feel the loss of an experienced, reliable member of the officiating team. Volunteers and officials are the backbone of our sport and so important to the games. 15 years is a long career with EHF, and the relationships and friends made over this time will stand with you. As much as talent, professionalism is so important in officiating. You have shown this time and time again, not just pitch side, but in the many other hockey roles you held. I give special warm thanks on behalf of the appointments group, who could so often depend on your enthusiasm. Their job was made easier knowing who they could always depend on. Congratulations, Martin, very well deserved.
Huge congratulations, Martin, from all the board. And there's lots of nice messages of congratulations coming in on the chat as well.
Thanks, Paul. I can see that.
Would you like to say a few words?
You talking to me?
Do you want to say anything?
No, I can't say anything. I don't know what to say, to be honest with you. Just to thank Anne for the honour. I'm absolutely thrilled.
Thanks, Martin.
Well done, Martin. You were the only nominee.
Unfortunately, we can't give you your pin in person, much like the last time, Martin.
Sorry?
Unfortunately, we can't give you your pin. You're in person.
I understand that. I understand that.
Hopefully sometime
sometime.
soon.
Thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
Okay, Jerome, we might move on the slides. So general business, again, there were questions not related to the topics we've already covered received in advance. So I will ask those at this point. Jerome, a question for you from Yuri. Can you confirm the number of clubs who've not yet fully paid their affiliation fees for the 2021 season?
We won't mention the individual clubs, but we believe we have around 97% of all the clubs and teams being paid. Yeah, that's the figure.
Thank you. Ian, a question for you around competitions. I'll ask the question while you're unmuting there. References made in the annual report to the ongoing review of the current Irish Hockey League by the working group. What is the current status of the review, and when will the working document be circulated to clubs for review and feedback?
Yep, right. Well, maybe if I just take it back a stage even from that, there was a review asked for by the Board of Hockey Ireland. So a review of the EYHL asked for by the Board of Hockey Ireland. So a review group was brought together, which consisted of members of each of the provincial competitions committee, the EYHL working group, the Hockey Ireland Chief Executive, the Hockey Ireland office, representative from the Irish Hockey Umpires Association, and a representative from the high performance team in Hockey Ireland. The review group they identified a list of stakeholders and sought inputs from those stakeholders. The stakeholders identified were the clubs, the provincial competitions committee, the sponsors, the umpires, technical officials, the Hockey Ireland office, the high performance team, the EY working group, and the Hockey Ireland's competitions committee, who are involved in producing the calendar of events every year. As part of that information gathering, the provincial representatives organised provincial forums that were held in January. When all the stakeholder inputs had been received, they were consolidated into a working document and discussed in depth by the review group. Further input was then sought from provincial committees, the umpires, the EYHL working group, on some of the points that were brought to the review group. And at that stage, the working document was made available to whoever the provincial representatives thought would be best placed to answer the subsequent queries. When those subsequent queries were answered, the review group reconvened and eventually brought forward 8 recommendations that were subsequently agreed by the Hockey Ireland board in its board meeting in May. In addition to the 8 recommendations, there were a further 5 suggestions made. The recommendations that were brought forward and approved by the board in May were that in line with the statement that was made on the 5th of February by the board in relation to the COVID stage, or the stage COVID interruption at that time, was that the EY hockey leagues will return in September 2021, inclusive of all teams as per season 2021. So effectively the 2021 season is reconvened to commence as was at that stage for 21-22 season. So the recommendations that were made relate to the 22-23 season, and in relation to EYHL1, those are that the EYHL1 is to remain as a full league competition comprising of 10 teams. There will be a change in the promotion relegation situation between EYHL1 and 2, with a 2 up, 2 down approach being taken. The number of players in EYHL squads would be reduced to 16 as opposed to currently 18. The reason for that was, somebody put it, that goalkeepers are being dragged around the country to sit on the bench and not being able to play hockey. And a slight change in the playoffs, the change from the top 4 going through to the EY1 Champions Trophy finals to the top 6 going through. So the first and second place teams will progress straight through the semi-finals. The third, fourth, fifth and sixth place teams will play in quarterfinals, with the winners of those quarterfinals then progressing to the semi-finals. In relation to EYHL2, the recommendation was that EYHL2 will be 10-team competitions, and both men's and women's, played in 2 groups of 5 teams in parallel with the provincial leagues. In line with the EYHL1, the winner of each of the groups will progress to semi-finals, with the second and third place teams in each section to play off in quarterfinals to then progress to the semi-finals. The existing provincial protection in women's EYHL2 is to remain, to ensure that it remains an All-Ireland competition. And the men's EYHL2 will consist of 3 teams from Leinster, Munster and Ulster, with the 10th place being determined by a playoff between the 4th place finishers in Leinster and Ulster. That playoff is to be completed at the end of the prior season, so the qualified teams for the following season are confirmed. The final recommendation was that a further review was to be undertaken at the end of the 22-23 season to coincide with the expiry of the current sponsorship deal. The group felt that possible incurred costs that would be incurred if there wasn't a further sponsor or a renewal of the sponsorship agreement could severely impact on the ability of clubs to compete. So those were the recommendations. There is a recommendation document, which I'm sure we could make available to everybody who wants it, or even possibly put it on the website. And the working document could also be made available for anybody who cares to view it. So hopefully that's answered that question.
Thanks, Ian. There was a couple of other ones, if that's okay. I'm going to direct this at you, but let me know if it should be passed to someone else. A question around when the leagues may start.
Well, that is provisional at the moment. The calendar for the 21-22 season is still in progress, but provisionally, the EYHL1 men's 2 start date is penciled in for the 11th of September. For EYHL2, those leagues will start on the 20th November. The men's sections will have 2 rounds pre-Christmas, 1 more round in late January, and then conclude during March and early April. In the women's, there will be 3 rounds pre-Christmas, 1 round in January, 1 in February, and then concluding through March and early April. As I say, those are provisional at this stage, so pending confirmations of clubs taking up their positions, obviously, and other scheduling of cup fixtures and so on.
Just one final question from Liz McGarvey around if nominations for European competitions in 21-22 season are required, how are those being decided? Either yourself or Jerome, I know the answer to that one.
Yeah, that topic has not been addressed yet by the board. We still need to make a decision on that.
Okay, so answer is not known yet.
Yeah, and I believe there's also a question about the competition fees.
Yes,
we need.
Thank you. Beat me to it.
Yeah, the position of that, and we're writing to the clubs tomorrow, is that the fees that were paid for last year can be used for coming season. If a club will not participate in, for instance, the cup competition, we hope that everybody will come back. They can use that fee for that purpose. Otherwise, we will reimburse those fees from last season.
And you
So
might just clarify which fees you're talking about there. Is that's the Senior Cup,
yeah, it's the entry fees to the EY League and the cup competitions.
Okay. One other question around the strategy. It's very welcome, but a bit short on specific targets and metrics. Does the board intend to develop specific metrics and targets around the strategic pillars? And if so, when will those be published?
I'll take that if that's
Thanks,
okay. We have specific targets that have been set. We are nuancing them because a number of them are not achievable, given that we've had to stop so much activity due to COVID. But we will have, or the new board will finalize the KPIs for all of the goals and the various subsets of the goals. And that will be made available to all of the membership for their consideration at that point in time.
Thanks. And then just one, part of a question that I may have missed around the affiliation fees. Is there any sanction to be applied if clubs have not paid their affiliation fees for the 2020-21 season?
Well, we will work with the branches in the club to basically get that paid. I mean, the sanctions are that you basically not become, that you're no longer a member of Hockey Ireland. You're no longer in the system, and you can't have the benefits as a hockey club. But I mean, we don't want to be draconian on that. We just want to fix that. There's only a very, very few of those issues to be resolved.
Okay. Those are all the questions that I have on the list that came in advance. There was one or two that came in during. I've put those to you now. I will propose to pass to Eric to close the session subject to any final questions under the term of general business. Okay, Eric, pass over to you.
Okay, thank you, Paula. We've had a difficult meeting, but we've had difficult things to discuss. But I'd like to thank you all for attending tonight and for sharing your views, because that's important. That's where we start. I think that there will be benefit in having some further discussions and explanations as to how the new membership can be made to work for everyone's benefit. I and the group that the board and the group that were charged with looking into this believe that this will be of benefit to every member of the hockey community. But clearly, from the questions that were asked tonight, we need to find a way to explain that in a little bit more comprehensive manner, so that those who are skeptical or those who are concerned can be reassured that it will be to their benefit, that they will not suffer because of it, and that it will be to the benefit of hockey as a sport on the island of Ireland. Before I sign off on behalf of the board, I would like to again apologize for the IT difficulties we had at the start. As I said, for some reason, YouTube locked us out and we were unable to get the YouTube streaming up for all of those people who are not delegates. But we have recorded this meeting and we will be making it available. And as some of the people in the chat have said, they are anxious to play it back anyway. So it may very well make interesting listening. So we will do that in the normal course. We will have minutes from the meeting as well. And it's, I suppose, falls to me then to say thank you very much for attending the 2021 Hockey Ireland AGM. Let's hope from a hockey perspective that the ladies team will do the business in the Europeans and in the Olympics, and that for the broader hockey community that there will be some opportunity to play hockey over the summer period should clubs or provinces wish to do so, and that, as Ian has suggested, that come this coming September, things will have moved on sufficiently that we will be able to get back to playing hockey leagues, and that everyone will start to get out and do what everyone wants to do most. So on that then, I would just like to say thank you and good night to everyone.
Chair, could I just make one point? I've just been made that some people were locked out of the meeting, including the Ulster President. So apologies to the Ulster President. There was obviously some issue when it was rebooted. So I think we just need to take a wee bit of lessons learned on that and learn from that exclusion of certain clubs who have been unfortunately suffered by the IT issues. So just record that, please.
Yes, thank you, Billy. Just so we get the language right, we didn't exclude, but we may not have been able to let some people back in.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. On that basis then, if nobody else has anything to say, I call the meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Okay.